Hello and welcome back to Hold On I'm Talking Brother. My name is Joe Greenwood and you are listening to our preview of UFC 299 from Miami, Florida, which is headlined by Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Vera 2 for the Bantamweight title, with a co-main event of Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint Denis in the lightweight division, 5 rounds of that, with a featured fight of Kevin Holland versus the debuting Michael Venom Page in the welterweight division, with also Gilbert Burns versus Jack Della Maddalena in the welterweight division, and Petr Yan versus Song Yadong in the bantamweight division. That is the main card. Thank you so much for joining us, listeners. As per usual, I'm joined by my regular co-host, Tom Ballum. Tom, this is mega. This is deep. And this is a juicy, juicy card. There's no way this can let us down, is there? There's not a single fight on there that can let us down, is there?
Well, we're going to get into that, Joe. Because there are a few potential ways that some of these fights could go. But I will say this on paper looks great. Yes. Don't have time to go into all the prelims here, but we got some juicy fights to point a finger towards there at the end of the pod. And a lot of meat on the bone. So can't wait to get into it with you.
Which is what we're going to do right now. Starting with the main card, listeners. Me and Tom are going to make picks for every fight. Starting in the main event, going down. If we get the fighter correct who wins, we get 1 point, and if we get the method correct, that's 2. 10 points on offer. We're going back to the old system. I didn't like that old system, that new one that Tom tried out, listeners, because I lost so badly, so I vetoed it. And we're starting with I didn't like that loss, so I want to do it again. In the main events, Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Vera 2. Sean O'Malley is the defending bantamweight champion. This will be his first defense against Marlon Vera to avenge the one loss on his record. Tom, I'm going to start this in a moderately controversial way. Is there any case in your mind for Marlon Vera having this title shot right now?
It's weak. It's really weak. Yeah, we can't hide from that. We can't hide from that. I mean, Marlon Vera, he sat at 5th in the rankings. Petr Yan, also on this card, ahead of him. Of course, O'Malley's already got a win over him. Corey Sandhagen, perhaps the most legitimate challenger out there, sitting at 3rd. Aljamain Sterling, who's moved up and been knocked out in his last fight by Sean O'Malley. And then Merab, who, cannot be denied, but must be denied for as long as possible.
Yes.
So, when you look at it like that, it's really just Corey there with a stronger claim. But of course, Marlon,
he's got that thing you love. He's got the narrative. And you love that narrative. And this is what you get, Tom. Sometimes you get good narratives. You get Jones Cormier. Do you know what I mean? But sometimes you get this and you're like, I don't understand this narrative whatsoever.
I mean, let me make the case for the fight. Sean O'Malley is the champ. He's got there in definitive fashion. He's just overturned Aljamain Sterling.
Yep.
Which, I gotta say, looking back at that, like build up to that fight, that is not something that I thought could happen. Really. Aljamain looking like he was in a place where he was so dominant in the division. In some respects, a bad matchup for O'Malley, and he goes out and does that.
Yeah.
And now he's in a position where he can call his shot. There isn't a screaming case out there, apart from Merab, who we've explained must be denied for as long as possible.
Yes.
And so, he wants to right the wrong on his record. There's a bit of beef there. Cheeto is ranked. He's not quite right there in the picture, but we've had more outrageous matchups. We've had, Michael Bisping in his first defense.
Dan Henderson. Yeah, of course.
So
that's always the first one, isn't it? Number 13 ranked Dan Henderson fighting Michael Bisping.
Also building his case for a title shot after getting finished by Anderson Silva in the UK. And
what?
So Bisping takes the crown, is what I'm saying, for these matchups.
Fair enough.
But Sean O'Malley, he's the champ, and I like it when they get the chance to right that wrong. And let's be honest, now's the best time you're going to get with Cheeto Vera. So let's do it.
Yeah, Cheeto Vera did win his last fight against Pedro Munoz. He lost to Sandhagen the fight before that, but before that he was on a 3-fight win streak.
A split decision.
Come on, man! Honestly, anyone who scored that fight for Marlon Vera did not watch that fight. That was 50-45 Sandhagen all day, every day. He wrestled him to death. A striker wrestled him to death.
I'm right there with you, Joe. I'm just pointing out on paper,
which is where the fights are fought, is on paper. Okay, so we're saying that the claim...
When it comes to records, Joe, it is. And that's why O'Malley gets the chance to right is wrong.
Fair enough.
That's why I'm saying this is okay.
So
embrace it.
Okay, we're going to get into previewing this fight in a moment, but I'm going to ask you this. I'm sure you've done it. Did you go back and re-watch the first fight this past week?
Of course. Of course. In fact, I watched a whole load of Sean O'Malley, Joe, because although I might not embrace the persona, man, the fighting style is... It's fire. It's
great.
Box office, and he has accumulated quite the highlight reel, Joe. So certainly, I've actually watched pretty much every fight in the lead up to this, or at least parts of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's... Do you know what, actually, that's always a good thing to do sometimes, is to go through like a fighter's, all their fights in a company. And honestly, you can't do many better than Sean O'Malley. Just pure styling on guys, and then you had that brilliant Petr Yan fight, you know, and then you've got the weird one with Marlon Vera, you know, you've got this interesting stuff there with Sean. So yeah, I rewatched the fight as well. And it was one of those where, like, it felt like a complete fluke in the moment, you know, like, oh, there's no way, like, this can happen again. But it's like, he did kick him in the leg, and it did trap a nerve. And I know you can say, like, well, did he intend to kick him in the leg to trap a nerve? No, he kicked him in the leg to damage him, and the damage was trapped nerve that caused drop foot, and then he wasn't able to stand. This is also Sean O'Malley as well, if you remember the Andre Sukumtop fight where he broke his foot in the third round, before then having to take quite a long layoff to recover from that. So it's like, is this guy a bit brittle? Like, there was always that thing going around then after that Vera fight, and I feel like since then he has subsequently proven he is not that brittle.
Well, yeah. And the definitive moment is the Petr Yan fight.
Yes. Having to
he
come through the fire and come out the other side with the win, like, you know, against all odds, it felt like. Against a guy who, by the way, remember going into that, me and you like, there's no way this guy can beat Petr Yan. It's like Petr Yan, however he wants to win. And then in the end, we're like, Jesus, like, how do we score this? Like, is there a way to score it for Yan? Like, you know, it was an incredible performance from O'Malley to come through and win that in the way that he did. You know, because I know that some people want to debate, like, Yan won.
He turned Petr Yan into a wrestler, Joe. That's what he did.
Yes. Yeah, he very much did.
And, you know, we might be looking at something similar here on Saturday. The thing is, with O'Malley, he turned Sterling into a striker, you know? So the man is legitimate. We can't deny him anymore. That resume, okay, it was padded, the likes of Eddie Wineland and Thomas Almeida. Remember him?
Yeah, the Almeida knockout was horrendous. Chris Moutinho.
Yeah.
What was that guy's name? Quinones? Something Quinones? I forgot his name.
Quinones. Yeah, that was before the Wineland one. That was Jose Alberto Quinones.
Yeah.
Chris Moutinho, right to highlight that one, because if you look at Sean O'Malley's stats, Joe, he has the highest striking differential in Bantamweight history, and also the largest number of strikes landed per minute.
Right.
And I just feel like there should be an asterisk.
Yes.
For Chris Moutinho.
Yeah, that Moutinho one was the main one for that, wasn't it?
That's a stats booster if ever there was one. But he's come through it, Joe, and these last three fights, you know, well, a bit of an asterisk with Pedro Munoz, but Petr Yan and Aljamain Sterling, they don't come bigger than them, and he emerged victorious. So this is his moment, and he's picked his fight. He's picked Chito Vera. Now Chito, we mentioned the Sandhagen fight already, but you know, you could take another look at his resume, and you could say beat former bantamweight great Dominic Cruz, brutal head kick knockout, real highlight reel. Of course, there's Frankie Edgar in front of his children in New York. the front kick. Rob Font, good name to have on. And just again brutality, the weight of his strikes. And he did emerge victorious against Pedro Munoz, which we're not sure that Sean O'Malley could have done. So, you know, I think there is a case to be made for Chito. I think people are a bit too down on the fight.
In terms of a style matchup, there's definitely something there. I think that, like, Vera's got this thing, which is he's never fully out of fights unless he's getting completely outclassed. Like, I'm thinking the Sandhagen one, and I'm thinking also the Aldo one. Like, do you remember when Aldo, like, absolutely schooled him, and he was just like, no, we're going to fight this on my terms, yeah? I'm going to be on your back, and you're going to be trying to punch me over your shoulder, annoyed. Yeah, like that's what's going to happen in this fight. And you know, Aldo's obviously a master, one of the greatest of all time. It's fine to come up short against a guy like that. Corey Sandhagen, tremendous fighter, fine to come up short against that guy. It's stuff like, even when he's winning, I often feel like Vera is a guy who... I know this sounds odd because it's like he's won these fights. He won the Rob Font fight despite getting massively outstruck. And he won every round of that Rob Font fight, by the way. I know he knocked out Dominic Cruz. And I know that, like, he beat Pedro Munoz and whoever else you want to throw out there. But, like, it's... There's always this thing I have in my mind, which is he could always be doing a bit more. You know, he's always willing to wait a little bit. And, you know, it's this thing of, like... You know when they talk about Petr Yan or Anderson Silva, when they're like, he downloads the data, you know, in the first round. It's like, he's trying to figure it out and he's going to figure you out from there and break you down from there. Pedro Munoz doesn't really do that. He's just kind of like, I'll just throw a kick.
Cheeto.
Oh, sorry, Chito Vera, sorry, my mistake. Chito, like, he's not like downloading data, he's just pot shotting, and that's always been his attack style. Like, he'll pot shot and then he'll figure something out from there. Like the Dominic Cruz one where he threw the head kick early on, saw how Cruz exited to his right, and then because of how Cruz exited on his right earlier, Vera then proceeded to catch him on that exit to his right with the head kick from there, because he tried that pot shot early on. It wasn't like, oh, I know he's going to exit that way. It's like, he exited that way that time. Okay, cool, I can set this up later. And that's what he proceeds to do in most of his fights. It's not, I've got a set game plan for this guy. It's, let's just see what happens. And the problem is that if you fight guys that have got layers of fighting skills, you know, that have got layers of attack, that can potentially throw up issues for Marlon Vera. Like, it could be round 3 and he might still not have figured a guy out. You know, and I think that could be a potential issue here with O'Malley.
Yeah, so on the flip side, Joe, I want to jump in and challenge that a little bit, because I agree that is a big frustration that I have with Chito as well. You know, he's got this lurking, menacing presence, but sometimes it just never emerges. You know, like, of course, take the Corey Sandhagen fight. It wasn't until the 5th round he picked it up a little bit, and it was never really there. Yeah, never really there. And so I think your criticism is fair. However, looking at this fight, I don't know if I'm his coach. I'm saying, like, go out there, maximum activity, you know, chase him down.
I don't think that's
put the hurting on him. Fight O'Malley's fight, you know, go step for step with him. I don't think you want to oblige O'Malley like that, because we know Cheeto's getting caught if he plays that game.
Yeah.
So if anything, I'm advocating for Cheeto. I'm saying, like, you know, fight your game. You know. Yeah.
I agree. If you watch that Pedro Munoz O'Malley fight, sorry Tom, I've cut you off there, but
please, no, go for it.
If you watch that Pedro Munoz O'Malley fight, Pedro Munoz fought within himself. He switched stances with O'Malley, checked his leg kicks, and threw low kicks. He was just like, I'm not going to fight on your style. I'm not going to fight on your terms. I'm not even going to fight on my terms. I'm going to fight on the terms to win this fight. And it's funny though that, like, how Pedro Munoz fights is kind of how Vera fights, chopping low kicks. Maybe I'll throw a jab out there. I'll walk down a little bit, but I'm not going to get too close. I'm not going to be too far away from you that I can't do any damage. Block, parry. Okay, I'll wait. It's perfect for a guy like O'Malley in a way.
Well, if he can fight a fight where they trade shot for shot, Cheeto can win that fight.
For sure.
Like, if it's going to be like that. So, yeah, definitely would want him to kind of, fight within himself, fight his own game. And you mentioned the, you know, switching stances with O'Malley. We have seen a lot of fighters try to do that, Pedro Munoz notably, and was having success. Sterling tried that. Tried that.
Not quite the refined striker.
No. And then, of course, when the one moment he failed to switch stances with O'Malley led to his demise, you know, where Jack Slack put out a video, I don't know if you've seen it, on YouTube, Filthy Casual's Guide to the Open Side Counter, and Aljamain Sterling overcommitting on Sean O'Malley featured highly in that, because it led to a beautiful knockout. What we saw there is O'Malley fighting out of southpaw, Aljamain still in orthodox, reaches with the big right, O'Malley steps out of the way.
Yeah.
Sterling overextends, and there it is. There's that open side counter. Sat him down, straight down the pipe. Really, really beautiful stuff. I just don't think that Cheeto's, he doesn't tend to do that, and that's in his favour for this fight.
I mean, it could lead to somewhat of a tactical stalemate between the two.
That's my big fear for this fight. When you were talking about, it could be a lot of fun this weekend, I'm worried about this fight, Joe. I think it's going to be pretty boring.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
Wow.
Unless Cheeto wants to get knocked out, and I don't think he does.
Well, no, I don't think he will either. Not to spoil it too much, I'm going to just break down something quickly with O'Malley that I think is quite interesting, which is the lead hand fighting. So he'll constantly be touching your lead hand, parrying, and then he'll throw a jab off of it to interrupt your rhythm, and he'll do it, and he'll kind of distract you, and it's almost like mysticism, sort of get you thinking about that, and then we'll throw the straight.
You will lower your hands.
Yeah. This is not the fist you're looking for, exactly, as it comes crashing into his face. He does this sort of lead hand fighting to occupy it, and then we'll throw the straight behind it from there. You've also seen him throw kicks from there. I remember against Thomas Almeida, he was sort of I think the first time he dropped Almeida, he was really messing him around with the lead hand, and then threw a kick behind it and sat him down.
Well, the front kicks, Joe. The front kicks. It's a big part of O'Malley's weaponry, and that's if Cheeto just sits, in that comfortable position. We already saw it in that first round. Sean O'Malley will be kicking.
That's an easy scorer. That's an easy scorer for O'Malley to get on Vera. Particularly if Vera's quite square and boxy, because sometimes he can end up in quite a square, boxy stance. And you just got this huge target for O'Malley to land on. And if he stays in that position for more than a couple seconds, he's going to get kicked to the stomach. And then O'Malley can then either, the sort of Leon Edwards thing where he'll throw the kick with the rear leg, hit the target, and then drop down and switch stances in how he drops his foot. So he won't bring the foot all the way back. And then he can be in range then for a straight. Or it's just going to be easy pickings for him. Circle off, try and get him reaching and grabbing, fighting that lead hand, ignoring the rear hand because he's occupying it so much with that rear hand. I'm not really expecting any huge tactical changes from either guy. I do think Vera will be pot-shotting. My worry, though, is that style where he's just going to throw things out there and see what's available is that he's just going to lose too many of those early rounds. If he goes through the first 2 rounds and there's no clear read for him on O'Malley, he's going to have to, might actually have to, almost sacrifice himself in that 3rd round to get anything going, I think.
I mean, without exposing myself to potential ridicule here, depending on how this goes, surely a Cheeto Vera decision has got to be the least likely outcome of all the outcomes.
No, I think that's quite likely. If he switches stances with him the whole way, checks leg kicks, throws his own leg kicks, doesn't let O'Malley get any sort of rhythm going. Kind of like Yoel Romero against Adesanya, where Yoel's just standing there, fists up against his head, not throwing anything, and Adesanya's like fainting and okay, I'll throw a leg kick. All right, nothing happens. Okay, shit. What have I got here? And then Vera bursts for 15 seconds at the end of a quiet round. He can nick that round. Of course he can. Could flurry. Yeah, all the shots are on the arms, and maybe he lands one to the body or ends it with a nice kick. That could happen.
I just don't think that O'Malley is so dependent on counter-striking like Adesanya.
No, he's not. He can lead. He can lead as well.
And I think he's quite happy to do that. So if Vera allows him that space, I just see O'Malley working him, going to town on him. So yeah, there is a narrative there. Okay, perhaps if I think about Sean O'Malley versus Pedro Munoz, and I think about that, but for 5 rounds, then maybe a Vera decision isn't so outrageous. Something tells me though, Joe, that's not what you've picked.
No, I've not picked that. Shall I drop my pick for you? I think it's quite an obvious one. I've gone Sean O'Malley by decision. I think this is I know it's a safe choice. I know it's an obvious choice, but it's safe and obvious for a reason.
Joe, look, you're down 2-0. You lost last year. You got to play it safe, mate, and I respect that. The problem is, I didn't mean to call you out and put you on blast there. But to see someone get almost every fight right like last time, that's got to put you in your box a little bit. So fair enough. I'm playing it logically and safe too. It's got to be an O'Malley decision.
Yeah,
it's got to be, Joe.
Yeah, it's got to be. Do you want Vera to win? Like, who do you like? Who in your soul would you like to win?
Nah. I don't want Vera to win.
Oh, you don't want him to? Okay, fair enough.
No, I don't. I got nothing against the guy. Like, he's got a compelling...
You very much do have something against him. I hate this guy. I never want to see him fight again. Has been a regular quote from you. He stinks.
Well, all right. No, I mean,
I'm sick of his stuff, his gimmick.
As an individual outside the cage, who do I want to take a beer with? Do I want to take a beer with Vera or O'Malley? It's gonna be Vera.
Of course, yeah. Of course.
all right.
It's not even debatable.
I don't hate his being. I just don't enjoy watching him fight. Not in Bantamweight, Joe, because he's the antithesis of what we have, which is like frenetic, non-stop pace, all action. It's just such a great division.
Yeah.
And he's just a throwback. So
well, that's the weird thing about Bantamweight, isn't it? That you've got like a lot of guys who've got like ceilings of like with their certain talents. Like O'Malley with the striking, Merab with the wrestling, and just like Sandhagen's like game planning skills, I think, are just second to none. And there's certain guys in there, like there's this interesting. I don't think that there's one guy in that division who I think is like super dominant over everyone else. Like apart from like out of those top guys. Wait, hold on. Are you telling me that there's one guy there you like that's clearly the most dominant one there?
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah. I don't want to say it on air. I don't want to oblige the man because I stand firmly against everything he represents. By the way, there's one guy, Joe.
He's weighing as the
backup. Should not be named.
He's weighing in as the backup. He's weighing in as the backup.
Joe, Merab is the man. He's the man. Like he's absolutely towering over that division. He is an absolute terrifying matchup for everybody. Did you not watch the Petr Yan fight? Go and watch that again. See what he did to our boy.
But that's Yan though. Yan allows fights. Well, we'll get to Petr Yan actually. Let's save Petr Yan. We'll get to that. Right. Interesting.
But Joe, let me stop you right now.
Go on.
Merab versus Sean O'Malley. Who are you picking?
Well, I don't want to say because it's going to come up, isn't it? Probably this year.
Well, the sport's going to evolve in that time.
Honestly, I've said it to you before. I don't think O'Malley's necessarily the easiest matchup for Merab, and I think that could cause him a lot of problems.
Absolutely. I agree. But you're picking Merab. There's not a matchup in that top 15.
Merab.
You're picking Merab in any other matchup in UFC bantamweight division. What,
even over like Sandhagen, Nurmagomedov?
Sandhagen is the question mark there. I mean, Umar Nurmagomedov. Okay, all right. I'm just saying, if you look at their recent outings, Merab there are no question marks there.
To me, there's no question marks about Sandhagen, but we'll get to that another time.
Well, he got choked out by Aljamain Sterling in about 1 minute of their fight.
So yeah, but that was a long time ago now. That was like 4 years ago. Like, are we really going to keep bringing that up?
Aljamain has left now. Corey, you can come out of the cupboard. You can come out of the closet.
I think Corey is a much better fighter now than he was 4 years ago. Like, demonstrably better than what he was a few years ago. Anyway,
Sterling, who are you picking? Sandhagen, Sterling, who are you picking?
Sandhagen.
Yeah, I'm picking Sterling.
Okay. Right. Anyway, let's stop going on about this. Let's talk about this co-main event because we want some fucking violence and we're getting it. Yeah. Benoit Saint Denis gets the big step up, and this is a big step up for him against Dustin Poirier. 5 rounds in the lightweight division. This is, son, claim that title shot for Saint Denis, isn't it? This is like, if you want a title shot, beat this guy right now. Is Poirier a sitting target? Do you think?
I can't believe this fight is happening. I just can't believe it.
Why
is Poirier fighting this fight? Like, all credit to the man.
Do you think he sees something where it's like, I can beat this dude? He must do.
I kind of just think he's maybe taking his eye off the ball. He's not looking at the division. He's not looking. He's like, look, he's looking for an "of" at the end of the name. And he's just like, nah.
No, yeah.
nah. And then he's like, oh, this fella, you want me to fight him?
French?
All right.
Yeah. I've got a French surname.
How far is France from Dagestan?
Yeah.
1,000 kilometers?
Yeah.
Have it.
Right.
That's the only explanation I've got because, man, why is he taking this fight off a head kick knockout loss? Benoit Saint Denis is not the man you want to fight.
I mean, do you think Poirier's recovered from that? I mean, that was 9 months ago now. 9-10 months ago, that fight with Gaethje, wasn't it? Like, it was quite a while ago now. So I think he's probably okay now. Like, in terms
That's
of...
the first time Dustin Poirier's been knocked out in 8 years. It's a big moment. It's a big moment to get caught like that.
For sure. It is also Justin Gaethje who knocked him out, so let's be fair.
But you also have to acknowledge the way that Poirier fights, you know? Like, there's no way this isn't a war. Now, I might have some worry about the main event. I'm not worried about this, Joe. These boys are going to get after it. They're going to go after each other, and they're both going to get hurt. Yeah. It's really, you know, make sure you're there Saturday night or on Sunday, you know.
Sunday morning. Yeah, that's
Sunday
fine.
morning. Get your coffee, because it's gonna be a great fight, and it's just not one you want to enter having been kicked in the head, you know, in your last fight.
No, it's not.
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. Let me just look at the rankings at lightweight, because you might say, all right, so you get a title shot off of this. That's the bait, is it for Poirier? So if we look at the lightweight rankings, are there other names in there that, you know, that are ahead of Benoit Saint Denis that might be a slightly more favourable fight?
Like who?
The men that are ranked above him. Rafael dos Anjos. He's ranked 11 at lightweight. Jalen Turner.
Right.
Fiziev.
Yeah.
Dariush.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, but you're saying these names, but like it might be the case that Poirier's like, I'm available now. What's the fight available for me? There's no big names available. He's not going to fight Chandler again. McGregor's not going to happen again. Diaz isn't a thing on the horizon for a while. You know, he's fought Gaethje. He's not getting a title shot. Oliveira's not there. Sarukian's surpassed him. You know, you've got not that many options in terms of big names, and then you go down who's booked. Do I want to fight Iraq? Do I want to fight Gamrot? Probably not. Do I want to fight RDA? Does that really do much for me? And then the UFC are probably thinking like, well, Benoit Saint Denis is this all action all the time guy in a, you know, burgeoning market of France. Like, that's a big market now for the UFC to go to. Like in the way the UK has been for a long time, France is now growing to that level. And you've got an all action all the time violence fighter like Saint Denis. That's a perfect matchup for the UFC, because either way they can warm up Poirier from there, or they've got a new top 5 ranked lightweight who has surpassed everyone else.
I'm with you. I get that. I just don't see for Poirier at 35 years old. I just don't see it. He's kind of in that zone, like he's in the prize fighting stage, or he should. And like I thought we had just acknowledged that. Like he got as close as he could get. He's an all-time great. He's a figurehead of the company. Yeah, like all-time great in terms of like, you know, being a UFC star, being a name. And you're gonna
Dustin Poirier's fighting. I gotta watch that. Like, you know, you see Poirier on
against Benoit Saint Denis. You're gonna do him like that. The man's just turned 35.
That's how it works, bro. This is how it should work. This is how
he doesn't need to do it. But
so then who is Saint Denis supposed to fight then? Because I'm excited that this fight's happening. This is what we should be excited for.
Well, Saint Denis got the big. We've lamented. I think it's great. I think it's harsh on God knows how many men from the East who have come before Saint Denis who are equally deserving of this kind of opportunity. So yeah, great credit to Poirier for taking it. Fantastic opportunity for Benoit Saint Denis. Great fight. Great fight. I just, you know, you're coming off getting kicked in the head by Justin Gaethje. You've just turned 35. You've got young children. You're a star. You just, come on, man. It's a brutal matchup, but, you know, he has paid in full. That's his catchphrase, right? And it's true. You know, he's been to the well, and he's not really been found wanting.
No.
So how's this fight going to play out? What are the things we need to look at here?
I mean, I'm looking at this, and the thing that actually stands out the most to me is the 5 rounds. Because we know Poirier is durable for 5 rounds. Like, we know that. And do you remember did you see Saint Denis' first fight in the UFC when he fought up at welterweight?
Yeah, I've seen parts of it. Yeah, it was a war.
Yeah, and well, he got battered, and I was just like, who is this bum? Like, who is this guy? This guy's got absolutely no hope. I know I saw like, he's fighting at a lightweight. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll give this guy a look. And then it was just absolute carnage, and, you know, I can't remember the guy he beat. Was it Niklas Stolzer? Like, he absolutely mashed him. Absolutely mashed him. And that's the thing with Saint Denis, is that it's like, it's not necessarily like about the skills that he's using. It's more about the range that he wants to fight at. Because if you're at range, he's going to be throwing massive kicks, like huge kicks to the body, huge kicks up top. And then if he's in range, he's going to be clinching, he's going to be elbowing, he's going to be throwing uppercuts from there, knees to the body. He wants to break you down over time, except that what you consider a long time to him, to us, is like a forever for him. He's going to like break you down quickly. Like 3 minutes is like, I'm going to be elbowing you, breaking you down. So I think that's going to be interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of clinch fighting in this. I think they're going to be up against the cage, fighting for positions, clinching from there. Poirier obviously fights from ATT, one of the great wall fighting gyms in terms of like positioning on the wall. So I think he's going to be hard to hold in that position. And Poirier, I think, we know his box of tricks at this stage. We know it. Jab, straight, step through, straight from the other hand. I love it. When he will land it, he fucking gets everyone with it, and he will get him on this. And it's like the Robert Whittaker 1-2 head kick combo that he lands every time. Like, I'm going to pop. It's going to happen. I'm going to pop when it happens. So I'm looking forward to that as well. I just really do think it's going to be an attritional clinch fight. That's my sort of what I'm visualizing with it. I don't know where you're going to see this fight being fought out.
I mean, one of the fights I watched in preparation for this was Dan Hooker versus Dustin Poirier. And I'm expecting these boys to be wearing similar damage to to what we saw in that fight. And I think the difference is, Joe, instead of Poirier weathering the storm, I think he might just get blown away.
Really?
I think it might be that time. I think that, like, precipitous drop-off. You've been the man to call this many a time, and sometimes you've been right, and sometimes you've been wrong. I'm sticking my neck out, and I'm saying I think this might be the one for Poirier. I don't like this matchup. Now, he could turn in another veteran's performance. He could go to that well that he's gone to so many times. You think about the fight with Hooker or Chandler, or the first Gaethje fight. You think about so many matchups he's had. Holloway at lightweight, where he really had to go all 5 rounds.
Yeah.
And ultimately, he just had that resilience, that absolute dog in him. And I don't think he's lost that, Joe. I just think he's 35 and he got kicked in the head last time out. And Saint Denis, the violence with which he's fought in his recent outings. There aren't many men who can stand and trade with him. Go blow for blow with him, fight him in that phone box. Or, as you say, be on the end of those heavy kicks. Like, the damage that he's been putting on people, pretty terrifying for me. And yeah, I've picked Benoit Saint Denis to knock Dustin Poirier out.
Wow. Big claim. Do you know what? It was funny that you're saying that, because I actually went back and I watched the Dan Hooker fight with Dustin Poirier. And they always talk about the end of round 2 where Hooker's like really putting it on him and they're like incredible. Round 5 is the one that stuck out to me, where it was the veteran. He's just like, I'm going to take him down. It was rounds 4 and 5 in that fight where he took him down and just beat him up on the ground. Completely, like, shattered him. Sorry, go on.
Leo, let me interject. He absolutely did do that. But before that, Joe, he just beat him on the feet. He broke Hooker. Yeah. He broke Hooker. Hooker could not take any more of that punishment. No. He couldn't stand toe-to-toe with Poirier because Poirier just kept coming back on him, and he was spent. Absolutely spent, Hooker. In that 5th round, he was absolutely done, and Poirier took the path of least resistance. That's not I'm not taking a shot at Poirier. I'm just saying he had pulverized Hooker into a bloody mess, and perhaps on humanitarian grounds, he took him down and controlled him from there. So
yeah,
it was a great showing from Poirier. I think he might be the Dan Hooker in this matchup.
Well, it's funny you say that, because like I was looking at that fight and I was thinking about Benoit Saint Denis, and I was thinking about my usual thing of like, I picked the young guy, and I was just like, can I really do that to Poirier? And I was just like, yes, I can. So I've picked Benoit Saint Denis to win this by decision I think it's going to be a bloody and brutal fight. I think they're going to put each other through the ringer. And actually, in a way, I almost feel like this fight might ruin Saint Denis. Like, I think he might be ruined by the end of it. Like, it's like he's a top 5 guy and he's got nothing left. Like, he'll fight whoever and he'll get blown away by a stiff breeze. You know, like, he could be one of those guys after this fight. So, yeah, excited to see what happens. But I'm worried for Poirier. 35, a lot of years in the meat grinder. Head kick KO. Yes, it was Gaethje, but it was still... He had the guard up as well. Like, I mean, admittedly, that's putting the hand up's not the best way to defend a head kick, but like, whatever. Yeah, Benoit Saint Denis.
I just want to add, you know, if it does go that way, and Benoit Saint Denis reaches his limit as Hooker did, there is an alternative path, Joe. As Hooker has shown us, you dye your hair blonde, you get tattoos absolutely everywhere, you insist you're not having a midlife crisis, you leave your wife and children.
Oh, Jesus.
And you get back in there, and you know, like Dan Hooker, he's still there, Joe, and he's still a great fight to watch. Great fight to watch.
Absolutely.
So, at a minimum, expect some of that from Saint Denis.
Absolutely. Right. Featured fight. Kevin Holland faces the debuting Michael Venom Page. This was the fight I struggled with the most in terms of making a decision of who is going to win, simply because I kind of really don't know what's going to happen. I don't know who's going to turn up here. I don't know what sort of Kevin Holland's going to be like. How good is Michael Venom Page has always been a bit of a question mark for me. You know, spotty record. Sorry, go on, Tom.
Well, that's where I wanted to start as well, Joe, because I know you've watched a lot more of MVP than I have.
Yeah.
So, as a diligent podcaster, I went and sought the opinions of others, and I watched a bit of Dan Hardy's podcast previewing UFC 299, and he introduced MVP as the question mark in this fight is we will find out whether or not MVP is actually the best welterweight on the planet or not.
What?
Yeah, that's
what? How is that a question?
That's the question for Dan Hardy. That's where he's putting him in this matchup. So
that's ludicrous. That's a ludicrous question. We're talking about Michael Venom Page, who is 37, I believe, years old, who has had an entire career before getting to the UFC. Like, it's not the case that, like, oh, he's whatever, like, he's coming into his prime, whatever. He's had his career, and now he's coming to the UFC as a name that you want him to beat Holland so that you can be like, and main eventing UFC London Fight Night, whatever, in October is Michael Venom Page, and people will come out for it because, oh, it's Michael Venom Page, is in the UK. There's no way Michael Venom Page is ever going to challenge for a title in the UFC. Like, let's get that straight for one. God, Dan Hardy really does overrate British fighters, doesn't he? I love Dan, but like, he really overrates them. He really overrates them.
Yeah, my eyebrows were raised, Joe, and I suspected you'd put up the kind of arguments you have there. Yeah, it certainly looks like that to me. Little, like, you know, squeeze a little bit more juice out of MVP. You know,
great name. Great name to bring in.
Yeah,
like
fun.
Yeah, fun. There's loads of fun fights for him. Kevin Holland being one of them potentially.
Okay, this is a fun fight for you.
Yeah, there's potential. But, well, hold on, there's the potential for it to be a fun fight. I think this fight is super dependent on Kevin Holland more than anything else. Like, I know what Michael Venom Page is going to turn up. He's going to be doing his bladed karate stance. He's going to be, you know, throwing feints. He's going to be, like, you know, trying to get reactions off of Holland. But I think if Holland walks forward and sort of tries to, you know, throws lots of body kicks, tries to get Venom Page up against the fence, I think that would be his path to victory. If he just fights at range with him and tries to do the karate stuff with him, it's not going to happen for him, and I think MVP could grind out to a decision win quite easily. I mean, Kevin Holland said he's not interested in fighting for titles, he's interested more in the money. Amen, fine. But you still have to win if you're going to keep getting that money. So at a certain point, he has to think, I have to win these fights. And I think if you lose to Michael Venom Page, I don't know if that's a great sign for you, to be honest. Like, and I like Michael Venom Page and I like Kevin Holland, but Michael Venom Page at this stage of his career, it's not like when Michael Chandler came over, you know, and he blew Dan Hooker away and he had that crazy fight with Charles Oliveira. Like, Michael Venom Page is a couple years past that, I think, in terms of his standing. And yeah, I don't know. Basically, until I see him in there, I actually kind of don't know what we're going to get. You know, that's just my issues with it. It's hard for me to verbalise or explain those feelings, and I'm sorry, listeners, but yeah, it's a weird fight for me. It's a weird fight for me.
Well, I only know Michael Venom Page from highlight reels of him absolutely,
of course,
making people look foolish, you know. But of course, you have to question the credentials of a lot of those people. Then I look at, you know, his actual kind of record in Bellator, and in the biggest fights, he was found wanting.
Yeah,
I think that's fair to say. I give the edge to Holland, of course, everywhere outside of striking. We do know that Holland fell short against the last kind of bladed karate guy in Wonderboy.
Yeah.
So perhaps that is some kind of portent into the future. However, I have picked Holland to win this fight. I think it's a pretty obvious pick. Holland's good, Joe. He's good. I know you think
good.
he was. I'm not going to say pushed Della Maddalena to the wire, but I didn't think he made. I didn't quite agree with your summary that he made Maddalena look good. I think if anything, he humanized him. You know, he took a bit of shine off Maddalena because it was a kind of not a dirty fight, but it was a tricky fight for Della Maddalena, and he didn't come out looking so pretty and refined to me after that.
I completely disagree. I thought Maddalena looks quite comfortable, to be honest. And that was my issue, is that, like, I don't think Holland always got into these positions where it's like, okay, he's got a chance here to do something, and he just never quite pulled the trigger for me in that fight. So that was always my issue with him in that one there. But here, just to let you know, I've chosen Kevin Holland by decision, simply because I actually don't know what state Michael Venom Page is in. I assume he must think that he's got something left to give if he's come to the UFC now, because it's like he's got a couple fights here, probably maybe 3 or 4 in total. You know, wants to be able to be competitive with these guys. He's not going to go in there and get blown away, I don't think. But yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one. So I've had to go with. It's a bit of a chalk pick, but I've chosen Holland by decision.
It's a Holland decision here too, Joe.
Brilliant. Now, this is important. Gilbert Burns faces Jack Della Maddalena in the welterweight division. This is the start of the UFC trying to freshen up 170 so that we have actual contenders coming to the top. You saw that last month with Ian Gary against Jeff Neal. You're getting it now with Gilbert Burns versus Jack Della Maddalena. They've done it with Shavkat Rakhmonov already. Your boy Bilal Muhammad has obviously worked his way up there quite fairly as well. And now Jack Della Maddalena gets his opportunity against Gilbert Burns. You're a big Burns fan. You love Gilbert Burns. I merely like him. So can you please state what case there is, do you think, for Gilbert Burns to win this? In terms of narrative, like, do you think he's ever going to get back to a title shot? Do you think, what is his motivation for this fight?
Yeah, happy to jump in there, Joe. So Gilbert Burns, of course, he has challenged for the belt before. Came up short against Kamaru Usman at a time when Kamaru Usman was so dominant.
Yeah,
it was
brilliant.
You know, he was staking his claim to challenge GSP for the greatest welterweight. That's how good he was. And you know, he's not far off that now. He pushed Burns. He hurt he hurt Usman. But ultimately, Usman was able to finish him. But it was back and forth fight for most of it. Then he was pretty comfortable against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. He took the fight that nobody really wanted to take against the surging Khamzat Chimaev. Completely brought him back down to earth. Went to war with him. Won the second round. Fell short in the third. Lots of moments from that fight. People loved it. Burns was ready to fight him again. Of course, it won fight of the night. Did the obligatory sub over Neil Magny in first round after that. Then cleaned out Masvidal, who at the time was still floating around the top of the division, before being matched up with, you know, like a check your level, check your status kind of fight. Bilal Muhammad did his arm in the first round and fought with him for 4 more rounds after that. Only lost really because of that injury. I'm sorry, Joe. I know you don't like that, but that's how it is. Belal could not put the hurting on a one-armed fighter in 20 minutes. That's the stark reality of that one. So Burns is right there for me at the top of the division until proven otherwise. That's compelling body of work behind him. And Jack Della Maddalena, on the other hand, has got none of those accolades behind him. What he has is a string of flashy knockouts, and he's coming off the back of 2 split decisions. One against Basil Hafez.
Yeah. That was 1 week after Maddalena's fight was cancelled at the pay-per-view. So he cut weight twice in a week. Yeah,
he was ready. He was already at weight. Whereas Hafez,
no, he wasn't at weight. Hold on. They had to... they fought... Hold on. He cut weight for a fight that was then cancelled on fight night. He then had to cut weight again 6 days later against a guy who was coming off the regional scene, who was fucking juiced to the tits, yeah, and was just like absolutely fighting with everything he had in him. And Maddalena looked not great, having cut weight twice in a week. And then he fought Kevin Holland.
I give you a bit more background on Basil Hafez. So, according to Topology, he is the 94th best welterweight. Active welterweight out there. He's rocking an 8-4 record, and yeah, you're right. He pushed Della Maddalena to the brink with no technique at all. Just as you say, a lot of juice in him.
I didn't think he was that close, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, it was a split decision on the judges' scorecards. I'm only. Did you watch
that fight? Did you watch that?
I watched the fight. And Maddalena looked god awful.
What did I just say? Cut weight twice in a week. Against a short notice opponent the second time. What's the guy supposed to do in that situation?
There are lots of people who have had to fight last minute replacements, and they haven't looked that bad. I mean, yeah,
sure.
I'm not saying it's like casting a spectre over his whole career. I'm just saying, like, his record, his resume, it doesn't hold a candle to Burns, and I think Basil Hafez is not that bad comparison for Burns, because Burns is a bloody strong, tough. Yes. You know, and if you get on the ground with Gilbert Burns, he's gonna maul you. If this goes to the ground, Burns is gonna sub Della Maddalena. That's what's gonna happen, Joe. And if a juiced up no mark can put you in that much trouble, then Gilbert Burns can put you in a hell of a lot more. Then we got the Kevin Holland fight. We know we see that one differently. So I think there's a massive case here for Burns winning this fight.
Interesting, because I think that because of Della Maddalena's mostly boxing striking that he has, where he will throw layers of attack just through striking, through his hands, doesn't really use kicks that much. I think that going for takedowns might be quite difficult for Burns, because I don't think Della Maddalena will allow himself to be off balance enough for him to get taken down quite easily. So that is going to be an issue for Burns. And also, I just think that coming into that boxing range that he'll have to, Burns is going to have to take quite a lot of damage to get a takedown in there. At which stage, it's like, what sort of state is he going to be in to actually take Della Maddalena down? And also, Maddalena's had a full camp to train for this. Okay, so that's the other side of it. Also, when you were going through Burns' record there, Chimaev performance very impressive. Magny brushed him aside, whatever. I thought Burns looked god-awful against Masvidal, and I think he looked god-awful against Belal Muhammad. Belal Muhammad's main issue is that he cannot fight outside of a game plan. And that is why Belal Muhammad will never win a welterweight title, is because he can only fight his game plan. And if the game plan is working, like it was against Burns, because Burns had one arm, he's just going to stick with it. He's not going to think, I'm going to go out there and finish him because he's got one arm. If he's fighting Leon Edwards and his game plan isn't working, he's not got a second idea. Do you know what I mean? That is constantly the Belal Muhammad issue. So, I think the record there for Burns is patchy, let's just say, in the last year or so. And I actually thought that after the Masvidal fight, that I was a bit like, maybe Burns should retire as well. Never mind just Masvidal. I thought Burns didn't look that great in there, to be honest. He didn't.
I agree with you. Absolutely, I agree with you. We can't ignore the fact that Gilbert Burns is 37 years old, turning 38 this year. You know, he's an old, wooden Brazilian. We've seen him come and go. We've seen
Thiago Alves, rest in peace. Yeah, like it's just There's a lot of those dudes out there.
Think about the way that Jacare Souza ended up his, somewhat illustrious career. But the thing is, Jacare Souza, he looked wooden as hell for a few fights before that, and he was still clapping fools. and
Chris Weidman,
Gilbert, Gilbert Burns can do the same. I agree. He looked very poor against Masvidal. He looked washed. He probably is. But I still wouldn't take him lightly, Joe.
Of course not.
I really wouldn't. And as bad as Burns might have looked against Masvidal, Della Maddalena looked equally poor against this fella. You can put up what you want alongside it. You can put asterisks.
I stand by that argument.
It has to be taken into account, Joe. Of course, it has to be taken into account. But it sounds like we're divided here, which we love. Which we love. So it looks like it's going to come down to this because I've picked Gilbert Burns.
What?
I've picked Gilbert Burns, Joe. I've picked him to submit Della Maddalena.
Oh, give over.
Absolutely.
Give over.
It's serious? Right there. Yeah, it's my outside pick. Yeah, that is my little tip.
Outside? You're not even in the country.
Yeah,
right
it's in
now.
it's not
terrible.
like Della Maddalena is favoured. It's like when you picked Poirier to beat Gaethje, and I told you, no, Gaethje's going to knock him out. It's the same thing happening right here, Joe. Gilbert Burns by submission. Look, I'm also thinking Della Maddalena loves pulling the guillotine. He loves it.
Yeah,
Man
he should not do that.
Himself.
He should not do that.
That is not something you can train out of people, Joe. That is his go-to. And Burns will make him work here. I think even if Burns steps into boxing range, just clubs him on one of those big juicy wooden
That's the
fists.
problem. That's the problem. Is that Burns springs into boxing space, and that is just open for a counter in my mind. Which is why I've picked Jack Della Maddalena to knock him out. I think he is going to finish him probably actually in the first round. Like, I don't think this is going to be that competitive, particularly when it's on the feet. I think he's going to be able to rip him to the body. I think he's going to break him down from there. And I think Burns will get desperate quite quickly. 38 years old. I'm sorry, man. The athleticism wasn't there against Masvidal. Magny, it turned out he was completely washed himself. So it was like, they were basically doing the washing up. That's how washed they were. And it was like,
Did you just call Neil Magny washed? Did you not watch what happened to young Mike Malott in Canada?
He was, yeah, I know. That's what made it great. That's why I wanted Magny to win, because he was so washed. I'm like, oh, please, Neil. Please, for your own sake.
Prepare yourself for the same thing happening to here. But this time it's happening to your boy. It's happening in your hood.
No, not at all.
Gilbert Burns, welterweight champion 2024.
I hope not.
I'm joking, but I can't wait for this fight now, Joe.
I can't wait either. I mean, I honestly really want Gilbert Burns to still fight. I want him to fight like Colby Covington. Like, I'd still want to see that, because I don't know how Covington would even fight that fight. Can't take him down, and then if he stays with him on the feet, you got this monstrous bloke clubbing you with only hooks. Like, it'd be brilliant.
Overhands.
Opening the main card then, Petr Yan versus Song Yadong. Make or break here for Petr Yan and Song Yadong, actually. I take that back. Yeah, both of them are at a sort of real... Are you going to make it? Are you going to be a top contender at Bantamweight? Yan coming off multiple performances where he's allowed his opponent to dictate the fight for too long, and subsequently then drops a decision from there. I'm talking about the Sterling rematch. I'm talking about the O'Malley fight. I'm talking about Merab. Is there the chance that he does this again as against Song Yadong, Tom?
Well, first, Joe, my jaw is on the floor from the way you've introduced these guys. The disrespect is, wow. It's breathtaking. Song Yadong is 26 years old.
Yeah, it's make or break for him. It's
make or break. I just don't see it like that at all. He beat
He's
Marlon
a good fighter.
Vera 3 years ago. Marlon Vera 3 years ago, and Marlon Vera is going to fight for a title this weekend.
That was controversial.
Song Yadong won't even be 30. He's coming off of 2 big wins where he's very much proved himself. Ricky Simon in the 5th round, in a fight he really won. I didn't favour him going into that because I thought we had found Song's level, to be honest with you. And that is somewhere in the 5 to 10 range, or 8 to 12 range, something like that. I'm no longer convinced of that, and I have to look at the man's age and think, man, this guy's got a lot of potential still. If he can beat Petr Yan here, then for me the sky is the limit in the fullness of Song Yadong's career. And Petr Yan, Joe, I've also got to take exception to what you say there. I mean, we just have to go back 2.5 years, and we thought we were looking at the man who's going to dominate the division for the next decade. I mean, that is really...
Yeah, but he's not going to now. Like, he's had his opportunity, and I don't see Petr Yan getting back to a title shot. Like... Man, No, I don't. I know that sounds unfair, but, like... I just think he's, in a way, he's almost a bit of like a sitting duck at this point, where it's like... I don't think that... In that, if you were a young contender and you face Petr Yan...
Give me Petr Yan.
I'm sorry, man. Like, I'm worried for Yan. Like, I think he's in a weird spot in his career.
I agree with you there, Joe. Like, you can't get away from the fact that if he goes down to Song Yadong here, that's 4 losses in a row.
He's done.
And the caliber of his opponent has been going kind of down through those losses. And obviously, if his losses follow him through that, then he's done. I mean, I don't know where he is on his contract.
He's got a fight or 2 left. Yeah.
So that's a very rough place to be, and I'm sure that the man wants to get paid. He deserves to get paid because he's bloody good. He's bloody good. And for me, he could be, in a world in which there is no Merab Dvalishvili, he could be the champion. So, yeah, it's not a strong negotiating position coming off of 4 losses, being Russian and not being able to speak English.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely in a very vulnerable position, and there are no easy fights at bantamweight. I think this is a good one, though. I think this is the right kind of matchup for Petr. Not to say that it's an easy matchup by any means, but I mean it. I think it could bring the best out of it.
I was like quietly impressed with Song Yadong in his last fight. Was it against Ricky Simon? Was the last one?
He had Chris Gutierrez, where he showed that the ceiling on Chris Gutierrez is good.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is that he was so far above Simone and Gutierrez in those 2 fights that I think he belongs towards the upper levels of the division.
What does he do well?
Basically, I really just enjoy Song Yadong's sort of like combos, in that also he ends a lot of them with hooks, particularly hooks to the body. I enjoy the sort of chopping leg kicks, and also he's just a very good athlete. He's a super athletic guy. And I think that that's carried him quite a long way so far in his career, that he's been able to be like, maybe his skills are letting him down, but he's going to use his athleticism to sort of put his opponents into a difficult position, whether that's up against the cage or just like making them work, having like high work rate. That could be a positive there for Song Yadong in this fight against Yan. The problem is that if you put too much out there against Yan, and you don't have like a clear physical advantage over him, I think that there's issues there. If you think about it, O'Malley and Sterling are much taller guys than him that caused him issues with range, and then with the wrestling, in terms of the wrestling strength that Sterling has, and then like Merab, where it's just the cardio, he has that over him, that he could just make him work to a level that Yan eventually buckled. I'm worried that Song doesn't quite have one of those things over him. He doesn't have a physical edge, except maybe in strength. In the clinch, perhaps could be an issue for Yan. But then I don't think Yan will hang out in that space for that long. And if they do, then I think he could take Song Yadong down quite easily, to be honest.
Well, Song scrambles very well, Joe. I don't think it's easy to hold Song down. For my money, he's very, very athletic, very explosive, very fast.
But he could use the wrestling as like a transition to something else, like whether it's striking or like, he could take him down and then feint that to open up strikes later on in the fight.
Yeah, I mean, we referenced it already, but like he was kind of forced to wrestle by Sean O'Malley because he just kept getting lit up, and that's where he saw his advantage. So it's not a go-to. It's not like a first choice for him. He prefers to, to oblige you in the dance, and then before you know it, you're boiling in the water. And Corey Sandhagen, of course, we've talked about that fight a lot, but he found that out in their 5-rounder, which Yan ended up taking him to school. And I think you're a bit quick to forget that, Joe. I mean,
no, I'm not. No, I'm not at all. I thought he was very impressive against Sandhagen, particularly rounds 4 and 5 when he really turned up the pressure. He dropped him, I think, in the 3rd or the 4th, and then just sort of took over. And I think even Sandhagen said I wasn't really in it after that. Like I wasn't really aware of the fight that was even happening. Yeah,
he was too fast. He was too smart. He was too slick.
Yeah. For sure.
But
that's how he has been found out by Aljamain, Sean O'Malley, and Merab Dvalishvili. He has. I'm sorry, man. He has.
No. I just
Yan's inability to get going quickly enough has proven to be an issue for him. Because that second Sterling fight, if he fought at the tempo and rhythm that he did in the 3rd round onwards, it wouldn't have even been a contest. He would have beaten Sterling.
Some people thought he did. Again, it was a split decision.
It was very close, yeah.
It was very close. I mean, Sterling won by being able to take the back and hold it. That's the only thing you can really credit Sterling with. He didn't do any damage. Yeah, right.
Absolutely. I've picked Petr Yan by decision, by the way, just to let you know.
You better have.
Yeah.
You better have, because the caliber of the man, he has not been found out, apart from by Merab.
Yeah.
I've got no defense. There's nothing I can say about that. That was one of the most freakish displays I've ever seen. And I don't know what cocktail of substances are necessary to achieve it, but the military, I'm sure, would be very interested, because it was unbelievable what Merab did to Petr Yan. It was inhuman. We haven't seen that before.
What's your pick?
Of course, I've picked Petr Yan. Of course, because I really think he's one of the best in the world. I don't think he was found out by Sean O'Malley. I'd love to see that again. And I don't think he was found out by Aljamain Sterling. I would not like to see that again.
I'm not saying that he was found out by him, but I'm just saying that when a guy's got a clear physical advantage over him, it causes him immense problems. The strength of Aljamain was.
I mean, Aljamain's a featherweight. He's a featherweight.
True.
Anyway, I've picked Petr Yan to win by decision.
Of course.
But I just, I could talk about this fight a hell of a lot more. But I know we've got one more fight we want to talk about, so I'll hold back.
Well, do you want to do the prelims, or do you want to do that fight, the fight that we were talking about?
Well, we should give a quick nod to the prelims, just because the caliber's here. We normally do a pick, a fight to watch. Which one is it for you, Joe?
Well, it's not only a pick, but it's a bet. Joe's cheeky fiver. Curtis Blades, Jailton Almeida. Blades, a betting underdog against Almeida. When I saw that, I'm like, okay. I like a bit of that. Curtis Blades. Are we really looking past him, Almeida? And Almeida, whose main skill is the grappling and wrestling, is he going to be able to get the better of Blades? That would be freakish if he was able to do that. So
I mean, Blades is a true heavyweight. We have to remember
he's
that.
Monster of a man.
Yeah, and he knows how to use it. Jailton Almeida is finding his way into that bigger frame, enjoying not having to cut down to light heavyweight, though of course he could. So yeah, love that pick there, Joe. That leaves me to scour down the card. And there's a lot of fights I could pick here. I could go down to the early prelims and I could look at Michel Pereira, always fun.
Oh yes.
Or I could keep it up on the kind of later ones in the prelims and look at the likes of the bantamweights, Kyler Phillips, Pedro Munoz. They're bantamweights. We've already referenced Pedro Munoz in some depths. Kyler Phillips has he's looked really good in spells. Yeah. Good in spells.
That's an interesting way to think of him. Even in his wins, I'm like, he's not always been the most impressive. I don't know. He has moments where he allows the fight to get away from him. Yeah, which you can't do against Munoz.
You can't lose to Raulian Paiva and keep a lot of hype around you. And he did do that. So, yeah. Nonetheless, though, bantamweights, Munoz are there. and Kyler, the oncoming 28-year-old.
Mm.
It's that, or I have to say that RDA, and man, I can't bring myself to do it. So,
well, RDA Gamrot, you're not that. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one.
I know you hate that fight.
Do I hate that fight? I'm
you're
just
a
not
Gamrot truther, and you're a RDA hater. So
I'm I'm very much not an RDA hater. I'm a Gamrot agnostic. I'll just put it that way, politely. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not too hyped about that one. Yeah, let's talk about the other big fight happening this weekend, happening on Friday night. Anthony Joshua versus Francis Ngannou. What do we even say about that fight? Like, I mean, is Francis actually going to win? Like, is he actually going to win this fight?
I don't know. I know there are purists out there who say it's a kind of freak show and unbecoming of boxing. But
they're fighting in Saudi Arabia. Nothing's unbecoming for boxing. Okay.
The thing is, Joe, as is well documented throughout our history on the pod, I love Francis Ngannou.
Yes.
All right.
You do.
I love him. I love that man. I love his story. And he has manifested all of this. He's brought it into being.
Mm.
He knocked down Tyson Fury. Now, say what you will about Tyson Fury. You should say a lot because you can't be letting that happen to you.
No.
But it did. It did. And that's what creates the intrigue here. That's, of course, what's earned him this fight. Did we think that Francis Ngannou would be able to pull this off? A fight against the two of the leading heavyweights out there? No way. And here we are.
No.
So, yeah, I think it's exciting. You'll watch it, Joe, I trust.
Yeah, I'll watch it on Friday. I'm intrigued by it. I think, man, I don't like saying this, but I think that looking at Francis's knockouts in MMA is not particularly helpful. You know, the big gloves, you know, the not so solid defensive capabilities of heavyweights in MMA. I think, you know, restricting his skills down to just the boxing, I think will obviously limit him. I think he's got maybe 2 or 3 approaches for him that could help him win this fight. Walk us through those, Joe. Walk us through those. Well, I think if Francis is going to win, if I'm going to take anything from that Tyson Fury fight, which, okay, I know that a lot of people thought Francis was robbed. I actually thought it was quite a clear decision win for Tyson Fury.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. It was. Do you know what it was? That was a guy outperforming our expectations, and then us riding the back of that, and that's fine. That's normal. I think for Francis to win this fight, he has to stick to the game plan that he had against Fury, where, you know, in the third round when he knocked Fury down, I had him winning that third round anyway. Had him winning the second. I'm like, okay, Francis is doing all right here. Jab to the body, straight up top. He was doing that, jabbing to the body, straight up top, and then he lands that huge left hook, knocks him down, and then it got good to him, starts headhunting, and then rounds 4, 5, 6, 7 got away from him. Fury started to work. Fury, who was in terrible shape, by the way, going into that fight. He looked absolutely awful. Had to dig deep into his reserves of boxing knowledge. Made Ngannou miss. And, yeah, I thought he sort of, like, cruised to the end. There was one round, I think it was round 8 or 9, where Ngannou started to make things awkward again. But, again, I think Francis, I worry that his cardio is not going to be there. It's 10 rounds. It's going to be hard working out there for him against Joshua, and I think he has to really limit his output. It has to be stark, distinctive shots that he's going to land. He can't get into a jab battle with him. He can't get into a lead hand battle with him, because I think Joshua just beat him quite easily. I think he has to really restrict his output to big moments per round, maybe 2 or 3 per round. Set it up with jabs to the body. That's what I would say for Francis Ngannou. As for Joshua, I think that I'll say this right now. If Joshua is going to get to any sort of world title level again, he should knock out Francis Ngannou within 7 rounds. And if he can't do that, I think that there is a question mark against him. Toothpaste is out the tube for Ngannou. There's no surprise factor anymore. Joshua's going to be in incredible shape. He will be immensely prepared for this. And I am expecting Joshua to win this. Might be the case that he can't get him out there, so he just cruises to a decision victory, which is fine. But if it's a blood and guts war where he struggles with Francis. I think that's an issue. I'm not expecting much of a clinch battle. And he has to make Francis miss, which I think he'll do with his lateral movement. Right hand pull counter, that's a big Joshua shot where he's like just slightly out of range, gets you to throw, and then he comes back with the crunching right hand from there. And yeah, that's kind of what I'm expecting to happen, to be honest. I think Francis will probably give another good account of himself. I am expecting him to come up short again, though.
I mean, that's, as I say, as a Ngannou fan, that's all I hope for. It's just a good account. If it is a blood and guts war, then I think Ngannou is good for a Wilder fight, for example.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, it's not what I want to see. I want to see him in MMA. I want to see him fight John Jones.
Yeah.
But if I can't have
happening.
that, I wish them... No, it's not happening. So I wish the man every success, really.
Same.
And, of course, if he gets cleaned out, crisp by crisp shot from Joshua, you know, he's not going to get those big matchups in boxing. And it will be taken as a blip, you know, in Fury's career rather than, you know...
Well, I don't know. It might make Joshua look even better. Where it's just like, I absolutely smoked that fool that you struggled with. But, you know, that's the way you could advertise that.
Absolutely. I mean, I have to say, I watched Joshua against Otto Wallin. And, yeah, Joshua looked mean. He looked really good.
Yeah, he's gotten back to that where he looked like kind of nasty in there. The last 3 fights, he's looked like he's in a bit of a bad mood. And he's wanting to put it on these guys. The one before that, when he fought Robert Helenius, again, it was a week's notice. Helenius came in on short notice to replace Dillian White. So I felt that Joshua was a bit tentative, more than he should have been. Could have blown him away out there a bit quicker, but sometimes you need to get the rounds. But against Wallin, yeah, he looks brutal. And that was a fight where people were like, oh, Wallin, he could cause him some problems. Wallin caused Fury problems. Cut Fury, almost beat him because of the cut. But Joshua just murked him. So, again, I'm expecting Joshua to be in good shape. I think a lot of people hold a lot of hatred for Joshua that I think is unfair. I think part of it is that he had that blip against Andy Ruiz where Ruiz finished him, got the TKO over him, where he hit him on the temple and his equilibrium went and whatever else. It was a bit of a mess for Joshua that night. I think people hold it against him his nice guy persona where they think he's a fake. And then when he comes out, it's like, oh, I'll be a nasty git, and they don't like him for that either. I personally have always liked him. He's brought the fight every time. He's had exciting title fights. He always causes intrigue and interest, and I like that in a heavyweight, particularly if it's a British heavyweight as well. So I'm a fan of Joshua, but I'm also a fan of Francis, and I will say I do kind of want Francis to win simply because that will be hilarious. So yeah, that's kind of my preview of that fight, Tom.
Right. Thank you.
That's all I can really say. So yeah, sorry, I slightly monologued there. I didn't mean to dominate much, but
we welcome it, and yeah, let's hope for a good weekend of fights.
Can't wait. Cedric Doumbé as well fighting on Thursday. Cannot wait for that. He is back in the PFL, so that'll be exciting too. Listeners, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week to review UFC 299. I might even do a bit of a Joshua Ngannou review on the Friday night if people want that, so I'll stick that up there on Friday. We'll get Tom's thoughts next week. Let's go over our picks one last time. We've both picked Petr Yan to beat Song Yadong by decision. Gilbert Burns, Jack Della Maddalena. I've picked Della Maddalena by knockout. Tom has picked Burns by submission.
This will be the decider, Joe. You could get back on top.
Well, actually, no. Well, there's a couple ways for us to be... Oh, wait, hold on. That is the decider, isn't it? Damn.
That is.
Okay. Oh, it depends on how it goes. Kevin Holland versus Michael Venom Page. We've both picked Kevin Holland by decision. Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint Denis. We've both picked Saint Denis. I've picked by decision. You've picked by knockout. Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Vera. We've both picked O'Malley. I've picked by decision. Tom has picked by knockout. Is that correct?
All but the last one. I picked O'Malley to win by decision.
Oh, sorry. My mistake there. My mistake. Listeners, thank you so much for joining us. Leave a like, subscribe, comments. We'll get back to you. And I hope you enjoyed the show. Tom, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Joe.
And listeners, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week. Enjoy the fights. God bless.
Bye-bye.